The best communicators I've ever met aren't the loudest people in the room. They're the most intentional ones. My guest today spent 30 years mastering that as an Emmy award-winning TV journalist, a political strategist, a CCO who generated over 2 billion impressions for a single product launch, and now he's a founder who's rebuilding everything he knows about communications for the AI era. Jason Erkes is the founder of Prompted Comms, and today we're going deep on what 30 years of communications expertise actually looks like when you strip away the title, the corner office, and the big company budget behind you and go back to building something from scratch. This is Return on Reputation. Let's get into it.
All right, Jason, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. For everyone listening again, welcome back to Return on Reputation. I'm looking forward to this one. This is going to be fun. This is a kind of a blast from the past. So just real quick, going back before the Emmys, before Cresco Labs, before everything, like 2008 and 9, I think I'd reached out and I was like, hey, Jason, you're kind of doing the same thing in Chicago as I was in Boston. You were leading one of the nation's largest sport and social clubs. And I was like, can you give me any hot tips? How'd you do it? What did you learn? I just want, so we have the shared background, it's been years. It's awesome to catch up. What is during those years, were they foundational for what you're doing now? I guess
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I look back at my career, everything was foundational for the next thing, kind of like a flight of stairs that you're going up. But,
yeah,
I think the core of any business, especially one where you're dealing with an audience that's so big and so diverse, is communication. And that's really been the foundation of my career. If you think
hmm
about, what it takes to go out and get permits to run leagues, it's good communication with park supervisors and people that work in different schools that might have gyms available. When you talk about getting people to participate in your leagues, it's great communication, which is marketing, to be able to build an audience and to be able to keep them engaged with a newsletter and things like that. And from an operational standpoint, it's communicating to your part-time staff that are running the leagues, so they're representing your brand the way you want them to out there on the fields and courts, and communicating to the people that are participating to let them know what's going on, what to expect, manage expectations, and keep things moving forward. So the foundation really for everything in my career and everything that I advise people is solid communication is the foundation for everything.
yeah. And I think it gets harder and harder the larger your organization grows. Well, at least
Absolutely.
internally. Yeah, it's so true. And I think a lot of people say you can't start a company unless you're great at sales. And I think what I'm hearing you say is at the heart of sales and marketing is obviously communication. And so your journalism background has really helped you there.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Think back to The Wolf of Wall Street, which was a movie, very much about
Yeah. Sell me this
sales, right?
pen.
Let's say you sell me this pen, right? It's all about how you talk, how you present things, and how you're conveying a message to people.
Yeah.
So I lecture college classes and seminars sometimes, and talk to a lot of students and future entrepreneurs. And I always say, listen, if you're a good writer and a good communicator, it's the foundation for everything you can do.
Mhm. What do you think right now with, let's just jump into it with AI, how is that affecting writing? There's a lot of people criticizing it, saying it's just AI slop, stay far, far away from AI. I know that it's embedded in what your offer is now, and we could just jump in. Which quick thoughts as you say that?
Sure, a lot of AI is slop because people aren't putting the work on the back end to make it not slop.
Yeah.
I just saw yesterday something on LinkedIn that someone literally cut and paste from AI to LinkedIn, and it had errors in it. It had words that I messaged the guy because I knew him. I'm like, do you know what the word feral means? Because your AI post has that. And I'm pretty sure you don't even know what the meaning of that word is.
No way.
Yeah, right. It was using spellings of things that were the European spellings versus the American spellings, with a Z instead of an S. And it's definitely slop. But a lot of what I'm doing is, well, I guess to back up, a lot of what companies are doing, they are training their teams how to use AI. They're signing up for AI seminars. They're having shared prompt worksheets that are going around the company. So they're
Yeah.
training their team how to use AI, but they're not training AI how to work with their team. And I think what I'm doing is going into companies and saying, hey, let's build you some custom GPTs. that we can integrate into Claude or into ChatGPT that take repetitive work out. A lot of that in PR is writing pitches, writing bios, writing press releases. But we're going to train it on your company. We're going to train it on AP style so it knows how to write. And we're going to hook it up to your client files so you're getting client specific and agency specific results when you're asking it to do things. And that's the back end work that people aren't putting into their AI to eliminate the slop.
Got it. So it's really foundational first, like brand strategy, brand voice and tone, all the files, the training that you're helping them with. Is that, I mean, am I right there? I mean, that's the foundation. You're guiding them through that path.
Right. Absolutely, Justin. Imagine walking up to someone on the street with your laptop and you don't know this person at all. And you hand them the laptop and say, hey, can you write something on behalf of my client? They don't know who you are. They don't know how your company operates and your standards. And they don't even know what language you speak. They might be a tourist from somewhere else, right? That's what you're getting when you're asking generic AI to do something for you. Without that training, without the background, without the connectors that it gives you to say, hey, we're asking you to write something on this client. And here's everything we've written for this client in the past. So you understand their voice, their tone, their messaging, who gets quoted, et cetera. It's no different than walking up to a stranger on the street and asking them to do something.
I love that analogy. It's so true. And it's like when we started using it. So ChatGPT came out in 2022, I think November. And I was like, holy shit, we got to get in front of this. So we adopted it right away into OB Creative. But it was initially like we just quick testing. Like I remember over the holidays with some friends over, he was like, this is crazy. You're exploring ChatGPT.
Right.
You're like, he's a doctor. Ask it this, kind of. And it was wrong, a lot of things. It was early, but I've always equated it to this human AI sandwich, so human first, AI to do a lot of the work, and then coming back to a human, like polishing it up, making sure it's accurate.
And what we're trying to do is a little bit opposite. We're trying to be able to have AI be accurate enough to take that first crack at things and to get it 80% of the way there and finish it with the human touch. But by getting it that 80% of the way there, we've already trained it on what you would do anyway. So we're having great success with that. The clients that we're working with are very impressed. The hours it's shaving off their day to get repetitive work done, they're tremendous, and goes far beyond just the writing as well.
Got it. So, all right, take a step back. Let's just set the scene for people listening. You not only you started Chicago Sport and Social Club, you had a journalism background. Then you went into more of a corporate seat into controlled substances, CCO at Cresco Labs. Okay, so I think it's an incredible industry. You must have learned a ton, operating. It was, I think still at the time, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but federally illegal. And it was state by state starting to legalize. So you're ahead of that wave already. Okay, so what did that environment teach you about like reputation that most founders never have had to learn? Because you're operating in this tough environment.
Right, from volleyball to weed, right? What a crazy career pivot. What was interesting about working in cannabis was it pulled everything I'd done in my past together and really was a perfect storm. I'd done a lot of community building, reputation building, media relations. I was an entrepreneur at heart, as you and I both are, and gave me the ability to step into a company that was in an infant stage. They were applying for a license for their first cannabis license in the state of Illinois, and kind of shape the narrative of the company and how we wanted to approach this regulated industry. And that success for what we did in Illinois, winning that application, was the foundation for the success in winning future states, winning Ohio, winning Pennsylvania. As you said, it's regulated state by state. And, the foundation that we set at the very beginning was the foundation that helped the company be successful in every future market. And from a reputation standpoint, I mean, can you think of anything that has a worse reputation than cannabis? People have...
especially at that point.
Right, especially at that point. I'll be honest, I didn't even put on my LinkedIn or tell people I was doing it at the very beginning because I was a little ashamed. I'm like, well, I don't know. What are people going to think? How's this going to affect my reputation? But, 2 years in, that quickly changed and it became more accepted from a society standpoint. But, what we're really trying to do is reshape and change the reputation of all industry, an industry that you have pictures of people passed out on couches and the Grateful Dead and tie-dyed t-shirts and, people in garages growing weed, versus a very sterile environment, people in white lab coats in a controlled environment with regulated lighting and security and lab testing and all the things that go along with it. And what I saw as the greatest tool for that was transparency and access. From a journalist standpoint, inviting them in, and journalists from all over the world would come in, to our flagship facility, and we would show them exactly what we're doing, how it's no different than a medical facility that's making pharmaceuticals, how regulated and how
Yeah.
exact the science going into the plants and the extraction and the manufacturing of the products was. And I think that's what people found so interesting, and it really helped change the perspective. And additionally, there aren't many times in life where you get to define a language for an industry. What are things going to be called? From the way you refer to cannabinoids to the way you refer to cannabis versus marijuana versus weed, to really help normalize and professionalize the industry. And that was a great experience.
And throughout that process, how much of it was founder-led brand, like for Cresco? Did you guys, was it you? Were you operating as the face of the company? Was it the founder? Kind of walk us through that piece of it.
Sure. I quickly became the face of the company. I don't think
Okay.
people think of stoners when they look at me, but then again, today, there really is no stereotype of what someone that consumes cannabis is. So
Yeah.
the founders of this company from the very start really had a mission to normalize and professionalize the industry. And that foundation laid the groundwork for everything that we did moving forward. And every interview I did to be able to talk to people about it, to be able to talk about the success from a medical program of how people were embracing it, how it was changing their lives, getting them off opioids, getting them better night's sleep and reducing their pain and reducing their anxiety. So, yeah, I mean, the foundation of it started with the founders, and then I led that charge and was able to carry it forward as a spokesperson and face of the company.
And then now you've obviously left, you're doing your own thing again. How was that transition from being the face? Did you help them, did the founder step in to replace that media role, or was it your just next replacement? How does your brain think about that? Like
Sure. I certainly laid a good foundation,
Yeah.
for not just the company I was working for, but also for the whole industry. I became the de facto spokesperson for the industry. CNN, the Wall Street Journal, and New York Times, really talking to journalists all over the country, from the largest to the smallest. In Kentucky, a local reporter where a store was opening or where a facility was opening. But the industry economically has really had its ups and downs. It's still a very highly
Yeah.
regulated industry. It still is federally illegal, as you mentioned. And because of that, it's not a very profitable industry right now. And there were some challenges that not just the company I was working for, but every company in the cannabis industry was facing, as the stock market was depressed and sales, people would see the lines outside the dispensaries and say, wow, they must be killing it. And from a critical standpoint, every store was killing it because people were excited to have access to it. From a financial standpoint, it wasn't producing the kind of results companies needed. And I think after a conversation with the leadership of the company, it was time for me to step away as they restructured the entire organization and the cost cutting effort. But I think I left them in very good hands, and I still remain an advisor to the company today. So if there's a crisis or if things happen that some consults on, I'm certainly available.
Yeah. I mean, I just asked because I think, and my thesis is, as a small business, or small to mid-sized business, I think one of the highest leverage points you can have is the founders and leadership team in front of, out there in public facing, whether that's on social media, traditional media outlets, out giving speeches and talks and presentations. I think it's, that's where we stand. I think AI and everything, social media absolutely is being leveraged differently today. So I guess where I'm going is, like, how do you think about it, like traditional media today and AI and the intersection of all of this, the AI, traditional media, and then social media?
Yeah. Well, what you said is really interesting. To back up for a second, when you're talking about the
Yeah.
founders of a cannabis company really being out there and creating their own brand, you have to remember, though, when we
Yeah.
started, and still today, cannabis being federally illegal is restricted from posting things on social media and being very
Yep.
and having access to the traditional tools. I mean, to put banking aside, when cannabis companies don't have access to traditional banking or the traditional U.S. capital markets, simple things like Facebook and Instagram weren't accepting of posting things about
That's right.
cannabis. So
It's
those
really hard.
challenges existed before, and they still exist today, although the belt has been loosened a little bit, to be able to do that. And when you talk about communications, to answer your question, section of cannabis, of AI, of PR, it's important for every founder and for every leader to build their brand today more than ever. From a PR standpoint, it used to be, we can get you on the news, we can get you on TV, and we can get you an interview. And when you think about it now, I mean, everybody's walking around with a TV station, right in their pocket.
Right.
And they have access to create that content, to put it out, for their audience and for other people to share it with their audience. And that's really what things have turned into. It used to be the person with the loudest microphone would win, right? And now that loudest microphone doesn't necessarily have to exist. You might have a softer microphone, but you might have 1,000 other people that have soft microphones together that can help amplify whatever it is you're trying to share and whatever it is you're trying to say, what your narrative is. So, building that personal brand, building that personal narrative is critical now more than it ever has been.
For sure. I couldn't agree with you more. And I mean, I think back in, I don't know, I want to say 2010 or I don't know, Red Bull was crushing and they came out and everyone's, holy shit, you know what they're really doing is they're a media company with a product.
Right.
And people start, B2B and even B2C. I think B2C has always been ahead of the curve on this, but like B2B was like, oh, we need to act like a media company as well. Everyone. And I think it's only gotten more and more, and it's still astounding how many founders aren't doing that, right? Like some of the most highly talented founders I find to be invisible because they just don't have the time. And
they don't have the time, but they also, I think, feel like their messaging needs to be scripted. And I think that's where a lot of people are making mistakes these days. They feel like they have to look perfect. They feel like they have to sound perfect, be in the perfect environment, and have a script of what they're going to say, which is very obvious when they're on there going, and you can see their eyes moving across their screen like this when they're recording something. And I think that's people are rebelling against that. People want authenticity. People want to know what's going on. And it doesn't matter what it is. They want to see that a CEO, a founder, someone that's a public facing figure is human, that they make mistakes, that they're not always on. And I think that's what people want on social media. And that's where a lot of people make mistakes because they think it has to be the opposite. Flip your camera on, go live, share a story, tell them something that's going on right in the moment. And you're going to really find an audience that is engaging with you.
I say the same thing to our clients. There's no such thing as perfect. And if you think perfect's going to happen, it'll never happen. Right. So get to great. Someone said it on one of the shows I've done is that they had a 70% rule. As long as it's 70% good, right? Like the idea, the concept, what they're about to talk about, they run with it.
My philosophy is as long as it's not bad, it's good.
I follow you on social. I think you're very natural on camera. Obviously, you've done this your entire career. What's one tip? I'm just like going off script here a little bit. What's one?
We have a script.
Just I had a agenda in my mind, right? But it's how do you come off so natural, right? Is it just like you've got a couple bullet points that you want to hit in every video?
I mean, certainly have an idea before you hit record of what you're going to talk about. But with everything I do, whether it's a TV interview, a newspaper interview, making a social, making a reel, I kind of have 3 points in my head of what I want to talk about. These are the things, this is the purpose of this, and these are the 3 points I want to make. And it doesn't really matter how I get there as long as it's all connected together. So I think that's really the important foundation for everything. You don't worry about the steps, worry about the end product. And as long as it full circle accomplishes your goal of what you're trying to say. And, sometimes people go live and they just start rambling. They don't really know what they're going to say. And that's exciting too. You can watch that thought process kind of unravel, really sometimes unravel. Have you seen the Britney Spears videos lately? Yeah. So you can watch that thought process unravel, and kind of tie things together. And I think that's what's exciting. So, you have to just act like you're talking to a friend. Don't act scripted. Don't talk above people. Don't talk below people. Talk to them. Talk with them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like having a conversation in your living room, just hanging out.
Yeah.
Where are you on the camp of, are you like document versus creating?
I'm sorry, document. What do you mean?
So a lot of people will say, hey, just start, right? Like social, document everything, right? So just what you're saying, like jump on camera, just talk about it, or hey, this is what I'm doing today. How effective is that? Or do you think that gets a little too sloppy?
Well, listen, if I'm a founder of a company, a big company, and trying to build something, I don't know that people want to see what I'm eating for breakfast or where I'm shopping. But when you look at all the best use case practices for social media, and they're saying, post more than 3 times a day. 3 times a day, that's a lot of content and
It's
a
a
lot of
lot.
things you have to talk about. So, I think it's a matter of balance. Everything doesn't have to be a long video. I mean, a real, 90 seconds seems like a long video these days. But I think it's important to kind of show people for full circle of kind of who you are and kind of what makes up your day, to understand that when you're a CEO, it's not all sitting in board meetings and, sitting in suits and ties around a table, that
Yeah.
there's think time and brainstorming time, and there's managing crisis and raising money and doing all these things that often aren't on camera. I'm not suggesting you start doing it live when you're in a fundraising meeting, for a series, but I think those are things that people want to see and they want to understand. There's a lot of people out there that are interested in starting a business, and so yeah, I say start throwing the content out there and see where it goes, but just be mindful of the things you're sharing. I personally, I don't share a lot of personal details of my life. I don't want to put that out there, but everyone has their own comfort level. I mean, there's people I've seen go live when they're going to the bathroom.
No way. Really? Oh my God.
Well, from
No, I know. No, it's a little too much. So let's jump in. I think it was about a year. Did you start it a year ago? Prompted Comms. I want to
yeah,
talk about Prompted Comms, what you're doing, because it's at the intersection of everything. There's a lot of synergy. I think before we pressed record, between what we're both doing. Once again, kind of full circle, I guess.
yeah.
But you do it in a very different way. So you jumped, I think it was March last year. Did you start the company?
Yeah,
Prompted
and
Comms.
and my evolution of doing it was really unique. When I stepped away from from Cresco Labs, like anyone, I was trying to pivot and trying to figure out what's next. And I was fascinated. I've always been fascinated by AI and technology. And like you said when you first sat down with ChatGPT and you were like, "Holy shit, I can't believe all the things
Yeah.
this can do." I went down the same path, and I was sitting there. I took some classes online and just sat up till midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, a couple nights in a row, prompting and testing and kind of figuring things out. And I took AI and applied it to the field that I knew best, to my industry, to where I was an authority, which is PR and media. So in doing that, I started testing, well, how would it handle this and how would it handle that? And while I was going through that testing process, what it ended up being was really building out a class, which started as for myself, to figure out what it could do. And then I thought, well, I wonder if other people know this. I wonder if PR firms and small agencies have integrated this to see the bandwidth that these platforms can provide them to help do their work, to give them more bandwidth for a 5-person PR agency to represent themselves as a 50-person PR agency.
Yeah.
And what I started was I built a masterclass, and I would go around to PR firms. I started with kind of a use case, testing it out and calling friends that own PR firms and saying, "Hey, can I come in and give your team a presentation on AI?" And at that point, a year ago, I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And you do your first couple ones for free, right? You go in and you give a 90-minute presentation, you show them all these things and you provide them prompts, and you get done and the jaws are down on the table. Like, "Oh my God, I had no idea to do this." So
Yeah.
I took that on the road and did dozens of agencies all over the country, both virtually and in person, kind of showing them. And then things escalated and kind of advanced and grew from there, which was, well, I'm teaching them prompts, which is a foundation to get results from AI, but it's training the AI and making sure that they're not getting that slop, and making sure that the AI understands PR, understands their PR agency, and can connect to their clients to really get client specific results and help eliminate the repetitive tasks they need to do, and to give them the more bandwidth. And that's kind of how the whole project came together. And now I still teach the master class. I do a lot of executive coaching, to sit down and explain to people how their teams can use it. And then we also do the full scale integration for PR firms and even for other companies right now, where we're helping personalize the AI experience and customize it for their business.
So with Prompted Comms, so if I sign on as a client, what is like the biggest thing that you provide? So you talked about integrating it. Is it you set up like a system and engines, and then you walk away, and I'm good, or
Yeah. So
just
right now we have a product that is kind of leading things. It's called the PR
okay,
agency Accelerator. And what
okay,
it is a suite of 5 custom GPTs that were trained on different roles within a PR firm: a PR writer, a PR researcher, a PR creative analyst,
oh wow,
a GEO and AEO tool, which is replacing SEO.
yep,
And we have these 5 tools that we've built. And what we're doing when we start working with a client is we customize those tools for that agency. Here's your writing style. Here's the way you do things. Here are your agency templates for new business proposals, for pitches. Everyone has their own style of doing things. And then we use a connector through ChatGPT or Claude to connect it to their Google Drive or their SharePoint where all their existing client files exist. So we load them into their ChatGPT business account and get it all plugged in and plug and play. So when they go into the PR writer and they say, write me a press release on Justin, it knows what a press release is. It knows how that agency writes a press release, and it's connecting to the folder they have on Justin with all the great stuff about you, and being able to return something very specific to who you are and what you've done. And, that's where the real efficiency of AI comes in. So these 5
Hmm.
customized tools that can really replicate the work of 5 different employees at a PR firm.
wow. Wow. So so enhancing efficiency. Is there a concern for privacy at all? Like where they're like, I feel like that I'm talking to more and more people, and there's a concern of like, how is the data being used? Who owns the data? It sounds like you've got that figured out. You set it up in a way that probably, mitigates against that.
Yeah, so
I guess, yeah.
most of the clients that we're working with, I mean, certainly a question and a concern, but we're putting them on a business or an enterprise account with
Okay.
OpenAI or Claude. And what those business accounts or enterprise accounts have is, first of all, the model training is automatically turned off, which most people don't know in their personal ChatGPT accounts that the model training is turned on. So what you're asking it is helping provide that platform more information to be able to make their models smarter. I recommend that everyone goes in and turns that off, is under data controls, and turn the model training off, first of all. But second of all, it also comes with data encryption, financial grade data encryption,
Okay.
like on ChatGPT Business, where the things that are put in are encrypted both in transit and at rest as it's going back and forth between your Google Drive, the platform, and returning the results to you. So, I don't think anything is 100% proof or private, but, we're certainly taking the steps to maintain the integrity of what's being put in and to make sure it's not
Mhm.
ending up in the wrong place.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've heard the same stories with it was Claude bot, and I think it's Molt bot, and people were giving it everything. And I know it's very different from what you do. So going off on a tangent here, but someone gave it a credit card and woke up the next day and it had bought a ton of purchases, like some expensive Masterclass or something. And the back and forth, I don't know if you saw this. They were like, well, why'd you do this? He's like, the Molt bot, like Claude, the AI was like, hey, don't worry about it. You're gonna make a ton of, this is like a 10x investment for you.
Yeah.
Just going to this masterclass. Don't worry.
Right. Don't worry. It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
It's like a
Um,
$10,000 class.
yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. I haven't heard too many stories of that happening. And I think in the early days, there were situations that might have been a little riskier, but I tell people as well, you can put generic information, present a use case where you're not using the client's name if you're worried about putting that client in, and just present the use case to get the results that are appropriate for what you're doing. Make up a client name and then just replace it in the draft. It really doesn't matter who the work is for. It matters what the scenario is that you're trying to have it work on.
Yeah. So when you're setting up the whole system, I mean, it's really sounds like a full PR integrated system for these companies.
And what we're finding is, Justin, it gives a small agency the ability to really upscale and compete with some of the larger agencies. If you're a small to mid-sized PR firm and you've got 10 employees, your bandwidth is in your existing clients and going out and pitching clients and managing media. But when all of a sudden, when you have an employee that works on putting together reports for clients on all the media that you've earned, and now you can just take all those links and throw them into your PR media analyst and ask it to build a report in the style that you deliver reports to PR firms, all of a
Mhm.
sudden it's automating a report where it's coming up with, with an executive summary and the sentiment analysis of the type of media, the breakdown of whether it was business media, lifestyle media, et cetera, the overall viewership, the dollar value of what that media was, is putting together a report within minutes. So you might have had a low-level junior employee that was gathering links and writing reports and putting that all together. Now you can eliminate all the work that person does by putting those links into your tool and having it generate a report that someone is going to proofread and send to the client, where that person can be working on sourcing new business opportunities or RFPs, or work on pitching media and servicing clients in a way where human needs to be involved versus the ways that humans don't need to be involved right now from 100% of their time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I like this saying, but I heard it, people are afraid of being replaced by AI, and they'll actually be replaced by people who use AI
100%.
versus the ones who don't.
Right. I mean, if there's a PR firm that's using AI and they're getting tremendous results and putting together these comprehensive earned media reports for clients, and then someone's doing it by hand, I mean, no offense to anyone out there that's been doing this for 30 years, but AI is going to do it better. And with your polishing at the end, it's going to be the best. When you look at good, better, best, right? You might do it good. AI is going to do it better, but when you combine the two at the end, it's going to be the best that it can be. And I think that's the way people need to look at it. And, people are, well, isn't that going to eliminate the entry-level jobs? Isn't that going to eliminate the workforce? Yeah. And in many capacities, yes, it will. But what it also creates is the need for someone to double down on something that they might not have been good at. If you were a writer before and your strength was writing, you still need to be able to write, and especially right at the end, if AI is doing a first draft and you're going to polish it with your writing skills and make it the best that it can be. But now maybe you need to pitch better, because AI is never going to be able to pick up the phone and talk to a reporter and explain the importance of a story that you want them to write about. So it's causing people to double down on the human tasks that AI will never be able to replace.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying be more human. Okay, well, you just said that, pick up the phone. How much are in your business, right? When you're winning new business, are you actually calling? Are you using the phone? Are you like cold calling people? Is that coming back? Or, because I mean, outbound is usually, if I get probably 15 emails a day saying, hey, we can get 10 clients for you through cold outbound. And
I think
it doesn't work. But.
Right. I think right now the challenge anybody in AI is facing, there's just so much noise out there, on the internet and in social feeds and pretty much everywhere you turn, where someone is selling prompts and someone is selling a training class. So it's really trying to come up with a way to break through the noise. My advantage is that I have 30 years experience in PR and politics and news, and I speak the language that the people I'm trying to sell my product and services to speak. So I think there's that natural connection there. But yeah, I mean, I've never really been in a position where I was selling myself and my goods and services before, and that's a whole new experience for me, where I'm emailing, I'm cold calling. I've got ad campaign running on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, trying to reach out to people and creating more content than I ever have, trying to show people and prove to people my expertise and my authority. And most importantly, that I'm not selling what everyone else is. Everyone else is selling training classes and prompt worksheets. And I'm not selling that. I don't want to train you on AI. I want to train your AI on you. And there's a big distinction between that.
I like that. Yeah. For founders specifically, and maybe we can get into what you're doing.
Yeah.
How people are trying to build personal brands alongside running a business. I think it's extremely hard. A lot of people, the consistency always wavers, right? It's like they do it very well for a few weeks, it falls off. They do it well for a week, falls off. And then that maybe they're, what they're saying, we talked about earlier in the show, what they're saying, is it correct? Is it not? Where do you see them getting their communication strategy wrong the most?
First of all, I don't see a difference between building a brand and building a business, because I think they're intertwined at the core. They're one and the same.
That.
So I don't think people should separate those two things. Building a brand is building a business, and it really doesn't matter what your business is. From a messaging standpoint, for sure, there's people like me that can certainly help put that messaging strategy together. But I really advise anybody, before they are hitting record on their phone or on their computer to record a reel or post something on social or live, that you quickly jot down the 3 points that you're trying to make. come up with a foundation of what it is that you're trying to say. And it doesn't matter if you're sharing a meal or sharing an experience or sharing whatever. How does that tie together to what you're doing? And the simple tie-in might just be that you're humanizing your content. You're showing some people something behind the scenes to show that a founder and a CEO of an organization is still just a real person that wakes up in the morning, puts their pants on the same way as everyone else, sits down and has breakfast. It might start earlier. Their breakfast might be consumed with, digesting news, but, where do you get your news from? What are you reading? How does that shape your day? How does the news that's happening with the day tie into your narrative for the day of how that affects your company, whether it be the stock market or industry news? It really depends what you're doing. So,
Yeah.
A core thing in media has always been newsjacking. And newsjacking is where you try and tie your client into what people are talking about to be able to gain exposure. That's all people are doing these days. They're taking a very old school PR tactic of newsjacking, and that's what they're using on social media or podcasting or whatever. They're talking about the things that everyone else is talking about. They're taking something that happened in the news, and you instantly see all those reels of everyone responding and trying to capitalize on what's happening.
On that attention.
And people think that they're doing something new. It's the oldest trick in the book for anyone that's ever worked in PR, but it is a great way to attract an audience of something that's relevant right when you're posting and making that content. Not a day later, not 2 days later, or a weekday later, but at the time it's actually happening.
You just said building a brand is synonymous with starting a company. What about your personal brand? Just same exact thing. Do you think the personal brand and the brand of the business should be intertwined?
There's certainly a connector. I don't know that they're the same. It all depends what your industry is. If you're a coach or a consultant or a founder, a big part of what you're doing is your personal brand. As a founder, you're trying to go out there and raise money and build something. And your credibility and authority that is what people are investing in. The trust is what people are investing in. So I think a personal brand is more critical than anything. If you're building a company like McDonald's, the next, a Fortune 500 company, I don't know that your personal brand is as critical. I'll tell you, a big mistake I made is I didn't work on my personal brand. I was working on my personal brand before I started working in cannabis and was posting content. And then I got so consumed with building the company's brand and being the face of the company, I stopped sharing, I stopped documenting everything I was doing. And stepping back out of that and having to rebuild right now is cumbersome. It's a daunting task, but I'm going through it. I'm doing it every day, but it's a big regret that I have is that I didn't focus on it. Take 30 minutes a day, early in the morning, late at night. Take one day a week and film all your content and shoot it and schedule it to go out just to make sure that as a baseline, you're putting something out there on a consistent basis. You can always add more to it. And newsjacking, talking about something that's happening, something in your day, some kind of development or something you want to share. But from a foundation standpoint, making a reel, making a carousel, having something that at least once a day, you're putting something out there for the next week and the next month.
That's, I think, Alex Hormozy.
Of course. Not personally, but
no. Yeah, of him, right?
Yeah.
I think he was on record I just saw a clip of him the other day saying you need to be putting into a minimum of 2 days a week into your content.
Yeah.
Which it's a lot. It's
a lot. And I don't do that. Listen, you and I can sit here and talk about that. I don't do that. I'm not that,
No.
I don't have that kind of time or that kind of bandwidth, but I'm working on it. I'm working on getting better at it. And listen, having a podcast and doing what we're doing right now, you cut this up, that can be a week or a month's worth of content, and it's very authoritative. When we used to tell people that being on the news helps create authority, right? Because it's third-party validation. Well, if the news is interviewing him and he was on TV, that must mean he's credible because they don't just put anybody on TV. And, I think podcasts and stages and all those things work the same way. When you're someone and talking into a microphone and it's being put out there for the masses with followers, when you're on a stage holding a microphone and speaking to an audience, that portrays authority, it portrays credibility. And I think that is really important to help break away from the pack right now of everybody throwing content up on social media. So, I'm looking forward to the content that I get from this to be able to share over the next couple of weeks with my audience.
Absolutely. And that's what we do. That's literally how we arrived at this whole entire thing was how do you have the time to do it all? So,
right.
I love that. So, all right. So I think reputation, to me is like synonymous. It's personal brand is reputation. It's at the center of both of our businesses. How do you define that? Just, I want to hear like how you think of that, and then we can get into the rapid fire round and
Sure.
really, finish it
I
up.
would say when it comes to reputation, there's no gray area. You have a good
Okay.
reputation or you have a bad reputation. And
Yeah.
and if you're in one, you're certainly trying to get into the other, and that would be bad to good. But protecting your reputation. I mean, look what happened with cancel culture, right? People made a misstep or said something inappropriate, and all of a sudden they were canceled, and all of a sudden they lost their followers, and they lost that base that they've been building and curating for so long. So, I think it's always important to be appropriate, to think about who your audience is, to make sure that what you're saying isn't controversial. And if it is controversial, there's a point for it. They tell you to go out there and the greatest hook is to challenge the norm. And that's fine if you want to do that. But think about who you're challenging and how you're challenging it to make sure that you're doing it in a balanced way. I mean, I would say in my career, I've spent a lot of time doing crisis management and helping change the narrative for people where it ended up where they didn't want it. And it's a lot more difficult to get from a bad reputation to a good reputation than it is to just maintain a good reputation all along. And that just has to do with how you represent yourself and the type of content that you put out there.
So true. It's easy. It's hard to earn a good reputation. Easy to lose it overnight.
Right. And it's even
parents told me
harder
that
to get
growing
back
up.
to it. It's even harder to get back to it. So, I've been successful doing that in my career, but
Yeah.
it's not always a winning case.
Yeah. No, I'm sure it's very challenging.
We're only as Olivia Pope used to make it look on TV.
All right. So it's I think we could have probably this show last a few hours right now, but I know you're busy. So let's get into the quick rapid fire round. Rules of the game: three questions, short answers. You can pass if you want, but we're asking everybody this. So
I've never passed on a question.
I love that. Of course you haven't. No. All right. So if you could, for question number one, if you could only give founders one piece of communication advice that would immediately improve their visibility and impact, what would that be?
Come up with a mission of what you're trying to accomplish and stick to it throughout your career. Who do you want to be? Determine that from the very beginning and stick to it. Are you trying to be a founder of a company? Are you trying to be an influencer? What are you trying to represent yourself as? Come up with the foundation, the fabric, a defining paragraph of who you are, your brand persona, and stick to it.
Okay. I love that. All right. What's the worst advice you see people giving online that actually holds founders back?
I think people compare themselves to what they see online these days. And what you see online is every coach, every consultant, every entrepreneur saying that they're making $1 million a month and that they can help you do it. And I'm here to tell you that that's absolute bullshit. Plain and simple. And that can be a deterrent for people when you see all these people like, well, they're already there. Don't compare where you are to where someone else might be, and don't believe where someone else is telling you they are. They're trying to sell you something. And if they were that successful, that's not what they'd be doing. So, don't get caught up in the bullshit. Keep your eye on the ball and stay focused on what you're trying to do.
That's great. Yeah, especially I think that's very timely in the world we're living in. Social media, it's everyone wants their perfect version they portray on social, and then what they're really going through.
One of my coaches
So
that I've
true.
worked with over the years always says, "Don't compare your chapter 1 to their chapter 20.
Yes.
It just means you need to write more."
I love that. That's great. And speaking of writing more, any good books? What is the best book you've read? It could be recently or ever that you would recommend to someone.
That coach that I was just referring to wrote a book. It's called Be Seen. Her name is
Okay.
Jen Gottlieb. I just finished that, and I think that's what we're talking about. Her book was written a little bit more from a PR standpoint of getting out there and building your authority. But I think it's even more relevant today when we're talking about social media and podcasting and all the opportunities that are out there. Is you have to be out there and letting people know who you are to build your personal brand. You can't build it quietly.
All right. Be Seen by Jen Gottlieb. I'm going to definitely check that out. So this has been awesome. Great. It's great to catch up with you, Jason.
Absolutely,
Thanks for
Justin.
joining us. What's the best place people can find you? if they're
I'm
interested in
very
reaching
I'm
out?
very accessible on the internet, but Instagram is Jason Erkes, my website promptedcomms.ai, LinkedIn Jason Erkes. I'm lucky that my name isn't John Smith, because typing my name into Google will get you to me one way or the other.
Awesome, man. It was awesome to have you. Thank you so much again, and we'll talk to you soon.
Justin, thanks.